Broadcast on cable, satellite, and via the internet, you're listening to Inclusion Revolution on VoicePrint.
Welcome back to Inclusion Revolution. We're really pleased that you're joining us to talk to Sharon Rutland from Cambridge Suites, who I like to call an employer of choice, an employer who maybe doesn't do everything exactly as it should work for the perfect inclusive environment. But I'll tell you something, just hearing Sharon in the first segment, you really understand that she's someone who is reaching out, looking for solutions, and also understands the financial repercussions of just throwing someone away and starting over. It's a win-win, and that's what we always want it to be, the right person for the right job. Now, Sharon, I know you mentioned earlier one of the things you're pursuing is disability awareness training.
Oh, yeah.
That is something that I know you know that I do across the country, and that's something we've dialogued on. And it was one of the reasons I was so impressed was, frankly, that very few people in this community have, although I've approached them, have really returned with the commitment to want to train their staff. Can you tell me why you think that's so important? I mean, I know why I think it's so important. Why do you think it's so important?
I think it's so important because when you're talking about inclusion in our culture, in our work environment, our successes have been based on inclusion of our staff. And for us to make diversity within our workplace work for us, and inclusion and accommodation, then it takes that buy-in of our staff, of our team, into any of the projects, into anything that we're doing. So that's why I think it's really important.
Yeah, well, you know, I've said this before to you, Sharon, but the fish stinks from the head. Maybe that's a little maritime invention, but it really does. And I've always believed with my disability awareness training that goes across the country that it needs to start as well at the top. So we often, like I'm in Alberta recently, and they had me training all the frontline staff, but nobody was training the backline staff. And in the case of a hotel, for instance, which I've done training for before, you've got the housekeeping and so many people in contact with people, but they're always sending me the sort of the front desk and the clerks that maybe see people, but they're not thinking about an inclusive environment front and back. Yes. And I know that's very, very important, and top to bottom.
That's right.
So I'm really appreciative to hear, and I certainly encourage all of the community employers who want diverse staff to take Sharon's lead in including in your plan disability awareness training, because the truth be told, education is power, knowledge is power, and if we, you and I have actually done some of the training for your staff, and I think you had an incredible response to that in terms of their perception of persons with disabilities. Can you share a little bit about what changed just with a simple day of training, which I know we've done?
With the simple day of training, it was a half-day
I shouldn't call it simple. I worked very hard, but
no,
you know what I mean.
That's what I'm saying. Simple day of training. Your half-day workshop. We do a lot of training within our group, and I've not seen the response that I saw from that half day. As soon as the employees come back, each one came into my office, they thanked me. They went on about what they learned, how they were going to implement it. Like, they were just excited.
And that's unusual.
It was really unusual. I wish I'm one of the facilitators in our group.
Don't feel bad. You just can't keep up.
I wish I could see that reaction when I do a training at the end of it. And I thought, wow, like, this is terrific. So when it comes to now, I mean, when I mention your name, they just light up.
When I come visit your hotel, I feel like a little celeb.
Yeah,
it's so nice.
Really
Everyone's saying hi to me.
Yeah, and that's gone through. So now we have other staff that want to go through the training because they've heard about it, it's being talked about. They're seeing the difference. Immediately, our staff identified guests and even other employees of how they could help them. And it really excited and empowered them. Yeah, it was very interesting.
So they were now looking and seeing people in a different way, like seeing that disability, but not going next teller, whatever it is, and avoiding it. Not because I believe they're insensitive, as you know, but because I believe they don't know. And I really believe disability awareness training is sort of that aha moment. It's not bringing them something they've never heard of necessarily. It's some information, but it's presented in a way that's applicable to every day. And that's why I'm so pleased to hear them coming back with suggestions and opportunities to say maybe we could make it easier. Because this is really about accommodation. And accommodation is not just for the person with disability. And of course, you and I have talked about that as well. When you accommodate or create an environment that is accommodating, you're accommodating the mothers with kids in strollers, the seniors, who don't necessarily identify as living with disability, but just natural aging process, as well as, of course, persons with disabilities, or just someone carrying a lot of bags. So it's really great when we talk about how accommodating environments are, and part of accommodation is the people that are exposed to them understanding not to be frightened, not to be avoiding but to go face on and never be afraid to say, I don't know. Because that's okay. I used to live in New York. One of the things I loved about New Yorkers was they will never say, I don't know. If you ask how to get to Brooklyn, you'll get 14 different versions, but no one will say, I'm not sure. I mean, they'll say it in another language like they know where Brooklyn is. So I've always felt that was a really important message to send with disability awareness training, and I think your staff really grasped the concept of being able to say, you know, I don't know how to best help you. And what better dignity or better service can you provide than letting someone tell you what is best for them instead of that leap to assumption. Oh, my uncle uses a wheelchair. I'll just push you through here.
Yes.
Well, the truth be told, your uncle might like to be pushed. I prefer to move myself. So it's that curiosity, I think, that makes disability awareness training so particularly effective, is creating a curiosity and taking away the fear.
Definitely. Yes, you made them more comfortable. Like they learned, but they also, it empowered them in a way that they were more comfortable, that you gave them ideas and how to approach it, whereas before they might step back and go, I'd really like to help, or what do I do with this person who is in a wheelchair? How do I best approach it? Or they did it and did it wrong.
Right.
And so now they're more comfortable at going, oh, okay, so since I've gone through the workshop, I've got some tools in my back pocket that tell me, you know, I can try this approach or I can try that. I'll ask first. You're right, not being afraid to ask was huge.
Yeah. And that was the thing. You have to remove the fear. Literally, I say about the next teller sign, but I've gone into banks and watched them do next teller in fear of having to speak to someone with slurred speech. When I just tell them, ask yes or no questions. Let them know you're having a hard time. Because the one thing I always teach is don't pretend you understand when you do, because that is the ultimate removal of someone's basic dignity. It means what they're saying doesn't matter. And I know you and I have talked about that and how important that providing that information to your staff who are very front line, especially in a hotel, you know, and restaurant environment. So I guess I want to ask you, what do you find right now is challenging you? Because you are that employer of choice. And what might I be able to provide you in terms of information, or are you curious about? Because I know you had some curiosity about how to proceed and do it better, which I'm very proud to hear you say. I'm very pleased.
Yeah, no, definitely. Questions of when we have employees, more resources to go to, when they disclose after the fact, we've already hired them, which unfortunately automatically tells me if we didn't know up front that there probably were things that could have been done better, accommodations that could have been made that probably were not, because we simply weren't aware of it.
Absolutely.
So what additional support do we have?
Right.
You know, when we have an employee go out, for example, and they, for whatever reason, whether it's anxiety, depression, you know, what resources can we go to get them help to get them back?
Right. And the nice thing is that this community has a lot. Because we do have the highest per capita population of persons with disabilities who self-identify in the country, I expect our community to have some very good resources. And in fact, we do. One of the things I noticed when you told me your story, and it was a great story about how you worked with this employee and ended up as a night auditor. That great story. What I noticed was the one thing that was missing was the community stepping in and really supporting those efforts. And if I was going to give you one piece of advice, it would be to start to connect with community agencies, not unlike Reachability. Have different agencies like the Canadian Mental Health Association or other mental health agencies come in and talk at staff lunches or brown bags about mental health and take away the mysticism. Connect with an agency where your employees can volunteer with different agencies in the community as part of a, you know, sort of a way of connecting with them. So my message to you is there's very little you're not doing on the money. Just your openness, your curiosity, and the capacity to say, let's try to work this out, is the greatest gift any employer can give. And then the community agencies, again, have that responsibility to reach out to you and to provide you information. At the same time, I'm encouraging you and other employers to reach out to agencies like Reachability, which is a cross-disability agency, so inclusive of all types, or again, maybe the Society for the Hearing Impaired, you know, where they can talk about hearing impairment. So at this point, I just want to say, I think this has been a great dialogue. I love having an employer of choice like you. We're running out of time because we always are. Maybe I just talk too much, but I'm awfully pleased to have you here, Sharon, and to share some of those techniques you're using and the ones that we truly believe are the correct ones in including persons with disabilities, because we all want the same thing, and that's the right person for the right job. We'll be right back with Inclusion Revolution.